We're going to talk about our lesson for today. So actually we are going to talk about the daily life of the Mayas and kind of compare that to our own, because while there were immense differences, there were also similarities, just like in all cultures. So a few things, you're going to have an option of what aspect of daily life to read about today in one article. So for example, there's an article about Mayan buildings and cities, and this is just an example of one Mayan building. This is an observatory, so they use this to study space and the stars to help create their calendars. This was in Chichen Itza where I got to visit, and it was a very, very cool building. Another thing you could, if you're interested in sports, read about is this Mayan ball game that was very, very different from basketball, but also kind of had similarities to sports of today's standards if you really think about it. So this is a ball court. What was really cool is the elite, so again, the higher class sat here, and then on this other side there was one just like it. And again, because of the advanced acoustics, they could have direct conversations with each other all the way across the fields, just because of the way the sound bounced off the walls. And then the players would play in this area, and I think they had to get the ball through these. They couldn't use their hands. The Mayan written language, something we'll talk more about tomorrow, but the Mayan written language was very, very cool. They use what were called glyphs or hieroglyphs, so kind of little symbols to represent meanings for certain words. And then, of course, food. We all eat food. One of the most common foods that the Mayans ate was corn. They actually domesticated corn, which means they made it possible for corn to look more like this. When it was first grown, it was very, very tiny. So they used their technology to make corn into the corn that, is closer to what we eat today. They also ate avocados. But in the article, it actually talks about the different meat that was eaten between the different classes. So upper class would maybe eat something different than middle class, etc. So you're going to choose between food, architecture / cities, sports, or writing. And then you are going to take a look at this. You'll click on one of these links. That should also, I'll add the writing system in there. You're going to write a summary of your article. Keep in mind, at least 3 to 7 sentences. That's a low number, then I think you could write. But keep in mind, at least 3 to 7 sentences. You're writing about whichever article you choose. So you don't have to read all 4. You'll write a summary here. Then you're going to write about the differences. So if you're talking about the Mayan sport, how is it different from your favorite sport? If you're talking about the Mayan writing, how is it different than our alphabet? If you're talking about the Mayan buildings, how are they different from some buildings you go to? Or maybe if you're talking about the cities, how are they different from the way our cities are designed? Food is pretty obvious. How is the food different from the food you eat? Then you're writing about how it's similar. So, if your article mentions how the observatory led to the creation of calendars or whatnot, do we use calendars? Do different groups of people eat different types of food? So for example, do rich people generally eat different food than people who don't have as much money? That is a reality that we live in. Do we write? Do we play sports? Obviously, you can kind of explain those things, but for all of it, use evidence, use evidence. I would really, really encourage you to use specific quotes from the text and explain them. So for example, the Mayans played a sport called blah, blah, blah. This is also talked about in the text when it says, and then quote something. We also play basketball, or we also play a sport similar to that called soccer, whatever you want to say. Then you're going to watch this video on the modern day Maya. So you'll click that link, watch a very short video, and then you're going to talk about the answer to this question. Why do you think so many people say the Maya have disappeared? Because the reality is they haven't. Mayan people live today. many Mayans actually descended from different Mayan cities. They have very different languages, very different cultures, but there are so many Mayan people that live today. And so many people say, well, they've disappeared. Well, your task is to kind of think about, why do you think that that phrase is used? Why do people say that Mayans have disappeared when they're still alive today? And think about this. How has their life changed since ancient times? That's a really big hint. And then use evidence from your text and video to explain that. So if you're explaining how, the ancient Mayans were very different from the modern Mayans, in that the ancient Mayans ate jaguars and the modern Mayans do not, most likely, then that can be your evidence. You're showing that because they were so different, the idea is that they disappeared, if that makes sense. As always, email me with questions. Submit this, turn it in on Google Classroom by the end of the day. Otherwise, it does have to get marked as missing, and this is not me being mean. It's just me trying to help you guys get in the habit of doing this consistently. I hope you're all doing well. As always, I'm here for whether it's questions about academics or anything other than that. Please give me a shout out, send me an email. Have a good one.